Mina the Hollower hooked me, cementing its hold during a fight with a giant animated statue called the Duchess. Mastering the hammer's charged swings, I depleted her first health bar, forcing her to sprout tentacles that burrowed under the arena floor before erupting where I stood. I died a few times, but by the 4th or 5th try, I finally grasped her patterns. I read her tells, strafing and dodging instead of squaring up, landing charged hits when she committed to an attack. Finally defeating this monstrosity with a glimmer of health remaining, I felt like I was releasing a massive weight, like I could finally breathe again. This fight encapsulates Mina. It's punishing at first, but only until you get the rhythm down, and then it becomes deeply empowering. During my preview, I repeatedly lost and reclaimed thousands of bones, which are like gold from Shovel Knight or souls from Hollow Knight or Dark Souls, etc., grinning with each new mechanic discovered or hidden side area uncovered. After hours with the early game, which reminds me of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening crossed with Bloodborne, I can already say Mina the Hollower has cooked up something special. Burrowing, or hollowing, is Mina's signature move. To initiate a burrow, simply long press the A button, normally used for jumping. Your mouse-shaped protagonist then dives into the dirt. She remains invincible against regular melee attacks for the duration of this burrow, eventually popping out a beat or two later in a small puff of dust once the ability's energy is fully depleted. This versatile move allows Mina to move around the world, evade powerful attacks, and even solve puzzles or enter new areas through small enclosures. Movement and combat are deeply embedded in the design of every part of the world you inhabit as Mina, which is why it's great that she also wields a selection of weapons, chosen at the campaign's outset rather than being limited to her canonical Nightstar whip, though earlier coverage suggests that the Nightstar, which can uniquely pull armored enemies out of position, is her main weapon. I personally barely touched it and didn't choose it past the tutorial. My preference was for the heavy Blast Strike Maul hammer, yet the dual blades Whisper and Vesper offer a markedly different, more versatile combat experience with their fast strikes, making Mina feel agile and dynamic for the short duration that I tested them out. The Blast Strike Maul, by contrast, is much heavier, slowing Mina down as she charges her attacks. This is where hollowing becomes a crucial wildcard, maintaining mobility between longer attack cycles. Together, these abilities create a moveset that constantly presents a tactical choice: commit to an attack or disappear under the floor to reposition for a better angle. You can even chain a burrow directly into an attack, watching an enemy swing at empty air before you pop up behind them to deliver a decisive blow. Just watch out for enemy attack patterns and stay wary of treacherous hazards that the world itself can throw at you, like lava that makes it impossible to burrow. Bones are the engine that drives Mina the Hollower's entire economy, and they're doing double duty as both currency and experience. You spend them at the blacksmith to upgrade your gear, you spend them at the trinket store to round out your build, and you scoop them up off of corpses every time you whip an enemy into oblivion. The hook is that they're also fragile. If you die out in the field, your entire stockpile drops at the spot that you fell, including any new bones that you earned while trying to fetch it, and you've got exactly one chance to fight your way back and pick them up. Die a second time before reaching them, and they're gone for good. The thing is, early on these losses really do sting. Plasma is the other resource you'll learn to master, Mina's version of an Estus flask, a small, refillable healing reserve that you must ration carefully in the early game before finding upgrades and trinkets that expand it. I died frequently in the early game, largely because I kept misjudging my plasma reserves, using it on minor damage, only to find myself empty-handed when a real fight began shortly afterwards. Learning to conserve it is half the early game, a skill that improves independently of leveling up. Part of the strategy involves generating plasma during a fight by filling the meter on the bottom of the screen before your plasma vials can heal you effectively. This means dealing significant damage first, then finding a quiet place to activate the heal. The heal itself can take up to 3 seconds to complete, leaving you immobile and vulnerable. I've already mentioned that I bounced off the Nightstar whip pretty quickly, but the real story of Mina the Hollower's combat is that there are seemingly 5 different weapon types in total, and you can swap between them at the blacksmith in Ossex City whenever you've earned enough bones to make the trade. The weapon that I had the most fun experimenting with outside of the hammer was the Battery Buster, an electric firearm that swaps between 2 modes when you tap the right trigger. One mode is a melee swing that builds up electrical charge with every hit. The other mode dumps that charge into a blaster that fires bouncing electric bolts that ricochet off walls and clip multiple enemies at once. It's a satisfying loop. You melee enough to build up your charges, switch, and then you empty your mag into the big boss across the room. Or you just let her loose and let those bolts pinball around the room while the chaos unfolds. Trinkets are the second leg of the build stool, and they're where Mina starts to feel like a proper RPG underneath the action-adventure trappings. You'll find them stashed in chests, sold at the trinket store, or handed to you as rewards for helping the world's inhabitants, and each one grants some kind of passive effect. Items like the Iron Lung, the Pit Preserver, and Flybait offer tweaks to things like, say, your plasma reserves, your burrow time, your ability to walk on spikes, and a dozen other systems. You've only got a handful of equipment slots to fill, so building a loadout becomes a real puzzle, especially once you start finding trinkets that enable specific playstyles. I spent a not insignificant amount of time in menus before I realized I was actually enjoying it. The world of Mina the Hollower is where the whole package really comes together for me, because Tenebrous Isle is one of the most flavorful little spaces I've explored in a 2D adventure game in years. It's a 1700s gothic horror setting dressed up with anthropomorphic mice, birds, humans, and the occasional shuffling undead. And Osek City, which serves as your central hub, is like this layered little ant farm of merchants and side quests and tin can kicking children and crate hauling workers, all going about their day under this perpetually dark sky that always looks like it's about to pour. Hilariously, there's even a ghost that's willing to race you across town on the condition that you would never touch a single staircase along the way. None of this is mandatory, but it is the kind of stuff that I kept finding myself doing instead of pushing forward on the main quest. The pacing trick that ties the story together, though, is the hunt for each of the 7 spark towers. There are 7 of them scattered across the island, and reactivating each one is the main thrust of Mina's overarching plot. But more importantly, they're absolute treasure pinatas. The first one I unlocked sat at the end of the Queensberry Crypt, the area that you'd reach after getting through the early game's opening stretch, and it played out as a vertical mini-dungeon where I had to outrun cascading electric surges climbing up the side of the tower while scooping up bones and clobbering enemies along the way. When I finally hit the top, Mina dumped thousands of bones into my pocket along with a fresh trinket and an equipment upgrade that I'd been scrimping for. I haven't reached the rest of them yet, but if they're all paced like the first one, the structure of this campaign is going to be one of its biggest strengths. My one real complaint after several hours is that there's no in-game map. I trust myself to read level layouts in most adventure games, but Tenebrous Isle is large enough and interconnected enough that I found myself feeling a little untethered once I got out of the opening areas. Maybe that's the intent. There's definitely a get lost on purpose vibe to a lot of the exploration, but a basic map would have gone a long way. But hey, at least the options menu is generous with assist modifiers. Want to jump higher, walk twice as fast, burrow twice as fast, take 1.5x damage for a real challenge, turn off combat damage entirely so you can just explore? It's all there, along with a bunch of pre-built combos that bundle modifiers into easier, harder, or just plain weirder configurations. I didn't really end up using any of them, but I am thrilled that they exist. They feel less like a basic difficulty toggle and more like a toolkit, and they're exactly the kind of thing that should be standard in every game of the style. If you grew up playing NES games, Game Boy games, or similar games from that era, if you remember spending an entire afternoon stuck on a single screen until you figured out the trick to moving forward, Mina the Hollower is aimed squarely at you. I've still got plenty of questions about the back half of this thing, but after several hours with the early game, I'm fully hooked, and I'm prepared to blast through the rest without stopping to ask when it drops on all platforms on May 29th. For more previews of the biggest upcoming games, don't miss our recent hands-on previews of 007 First Light and LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. And for everything else in gaming, stick with IGN.